Living Torah is made possible by the Print House.
This disc is lovingly dedicated in the honor of Chaim ben Zilpa by Oren and Neely Antebi and children. This program has been dedicated in loving memory of Reb Baruch Tzvi Reinitz by his children Yossi and Lilach Reinitz. Kabbalah teaches that the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are the building blocks of creation. Here, delivering New Year's blessings to the philanthropists of the Machne Yisrael Development Fund, the Rebbe taps into the full gamut of this creative force.
Wie der Mond mehrere Mal wie in der Tfilis verbunden mit Yom Kippurim. Ist eine höhere Tfilis, was nehmen nach Ruhm, dem ganzen Allebeis, wenn hat man ein ganzen Jahr, wo der Jahr wird ein Schnaß Eiro, und ein Schnaß Brocho, und ein Schnaß Gedullo, und ein Schnaß Dizo, und ein Schnaß Heidwe Hoder, und ein Schnaß Wildetev, und a Schnaß von Sochi ist Gedelis, und a Schnaß von Chaim Baruchim, und a Schnaß von Teve ist Gedelis, und a Schnaß von Jude Teve, als alle Jiden kleiben sich zusammen, alle zusammen, Kiish Echod, Belev Echod, und dann noch a Schnaß Kalkolum und Flogo, aber alle die Geschäfte, wo das wird doch angerufen in Loschen Kedisch, Beshem Kalkala, seien sie in der Neven, was heilig und mäßig, als Mörder und Mörder, bei Mörder hat sich damals jeder Rieder Quiz hinten beteiro, wird das a Schnaß Limutev, also lernt Teire mit sich Simcha betubli wo, und in der Neven am mäßig, heilig, und danach wird das sich a Schnaß von Nevsim, Tevim, an der Seite Nevsim Gluim von den Nebesten, unheimlich von den Nefes, von der Gula Amitis, war schlimm, aber das echt verbunden mit Schnaß Nisim Gedelim, aber das der Beiker, der Nest von Gula Amitis war schlimm, und Schnaß Sayaite die Schmeier, aber heute hat der Nebesten sie hilft in der alle in Yonim und Amurim, unheimlich von den Geschäften bepasst, also ich von der Jüdischkeit, was ist in den Geschäften. Hat setzt man in der Rufsayaite die Schmaio und der alle Jonen wollten in der Schnaß heißt, jeder hat von euch tut in dem, mit der volle Starkheit, was Aide hat, dass man darf tun eine gute Sache mit sich, eine gute Sache herum sich und eine gute Sache mit den Jiden, sich und a Schnaß Bedus, wo das verbunden, soll kommen gleich Bedus, die Eislesung von jeder Jeden, von allen Jeden, von dem Golus, und in der Neven von Schnaß Doka, haben es noch mehr mäßig, wie wird beschlossen, geben aufs Doka und schön ausgeschrieben, ein Check. Ist noch mäßig, was wird der ganze Jahr, als Zdokka, ein besonderes Zdokka und ein extra Zdokka. Und als ein extra, aber das noch mehr von der Zdokka, nicht extra ein Sofa, nur was noch mehr wie der Ascholische Bose und alle Jahre wird es in der Nähe von Schnaß kämen Mius, aber tut alle Sachen mit einem aufgehebenen Kopf und mit zufrieden und glücklich, was man hat das Schiff und zu sein Naid und finden sich in einem jüdischen Weg und finden die ganze Sprache in einem jüdischen Weg und helfen den Jiden, warum sie sollen sich finden in der Nähe von Kememis mit einem aufgehebenen Kopf, und da soll sein ein Schnaß Rotzin, aber alle Jahren soll sein mit der Rotzin Amiti, also hat in der Ruf liegt sein Emser Rotzin, hat sein Emerson Rossen in alle gute Sachen wie der Mond früher. Und das wird Schnas Simcha hat in alle Sachen a Simcha Mitis und a Simcha Gdele. Und noch mehr, es wird Schnas Tmima, a gesunder Jahr und a ganzer Jahr. Aber hat a Ganzkeit bei sich und a Ganzkeit sich. In Zugab zu der Ganzkeit in der alle Geschäften, bei Atzlocha Tmima, und es wird die Ganzkeit von dem ganzen jüdischen Volk, von jeder von uns zusammen mit dem ganzen jüdischen Volk, ki shechet chaverim, wird das Yeshvim ala Dmosam, als Yisrael wird Yishveh Oleo, als alle Jiden werden zusammengeklebt, binoreinu, biskeneinu, ובבנינו ובבניסינו וכספם וזהובם איתם, nimmt mit sich alle gute Sachen von den Geschäften zusammen mit sich in Eretz Yisrael, in Eretz Hakedish. Und es wird wie der Mond früher ein ganzer Jahr und ein gesunder Jahr, der Jahr von Kol Yishveh Oleh bepashtes, in Eretz Yisrael, binoreinu, biskeneinu, bebaneinu, bimniseinu, in Eretz Yisrael und dort in Guf wie Eretz Yisrael besteht von alle Esser Umis, von alle Esser Arozis. Und was sie haben, die Ir Habir, die Hauptstadt sich Jerusalem, und die Hauptsache in Jerusalem ist der Beis HaMikdash. Und der Beis HaMikdash, der Mikdash Adne kennen nur Jodecha, der dritte Beis HaMikdash, was wird Teke von Miyad gebuht, ist schön bei Meilo, ist Teke von Miyad Jered, Mila Meilo, Lemato, und wird an Pleck, Teke von Miyad in Jerusalem, in Har HaBais, wo das ist die Hauptstadt wie der Mond von ganz Eretz Yisrael. Und Eretz Yisrael ist in Amai mit dem Matze von Kol Yishveh Oleo, weit wo Iker, ad alle Jonen tun sich auf Tekef Yad Mamosh. Jeder Eid, der Schlier von der Lebensstil, bald hat ihnen der Rake, Schäbel und Schitteche und Kiede Lebensstil, jeder Geschluche. Alle Kirches, was da warum, hat man alle sein Schliches, die Tachlis Aschlemus, Leid, wo Ike, Teke von Yad Mama. Dann werden wir so in den Dingen schon gezeigt.
Greetings to you. And I wanted to ask you, in terms of the Institute, is there any change in direction that we should make, things that we should be doing now that are significant in terms of how we're doing things or just a general direction?
The only thing that you want to check out, if you can have something about Maaseh Torah Hamitzvot, about practical fulfillment of the mitzvah. If you are in general, you are writing in general terms, and the people reading them not only have time and volition to interpret practice, what does it mean in practical life. And it would be a good thing to have a new mind in every communication language. When in practical terms, feeling is so the consciousness of the soul, you must find the kosher cutting, the kosher tzilosima, etc.
Okay, and there's another question, if I may. You talk to us about prevention being important. Any direction in that regard? Preventive education, things like that for general society, we could be doing that.
The people is not happy when we are speaking about unhappy things. Because of that, the approach is better, more acceptable if you speak only about the good things that you try to teach your children. People are raised to give to charity, to each person, etc. They have a big lady, they will all God will not bless it. We're not mentioning about the Gehinnom, that all this. And then the people are smiling, and you are smiling, and they accept it, not smiling. God will not bless you.
In honor of your leadership, I quit smoking cigarettes. So the day of your 40th anniversary, I want to let you know that's a personal thing I did, and thank God I had the strength to do it, and I hope to keep perfect in that regard and to help improve myself.
As I said, many times, don't be satisfied about the past. You do double in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In 1987, Mr. Jerry Levine got involved in Chabad's Aleph Institute, which serves the religious needs of Jewish servicemen as well as Jews in the American correctional system. At the time, he was working as an anchorman for Miami's Channel 10 News.
The rabbi at the time and another person who was the president of Aleph, Mark Sheridan, Shalom Moshe Sheridan, had asked me if I would consider leaving television and working with this organization that helped Jewish prisoners around the world. And I thought this was really an interesting kind of an opportunity. I mean, how often are you going to get an opportunity to do that? I thought I could always go back into the news business or back into television, but it would be very unusual to do something like this. And I sort of was intrigued by the idea. And the rabbi had asked me to write a letter to the Rebbe. So I did. And I wrote this long letter to the Rebbe, and he said to me, explain exactly what you're doing, what you hope to accomplish, all these different things. So I wrote this long letter telling the Rebbe, I'm anchoring in Miami, and I'm doing this. I come from this background. I did this. I'm doing that. And I have this offer, and so on and so forth. And I remember getting a call. The letter went off, and then I remember getting a phone call from Rabbi Lipsker in the newsroom, and I pick up the phone, and he goes, I got an answer from the Rebbe. He goes, you got to come right away. So I go over to my assignment editor. I said, look, I have an emergency. I have to leave. I got to get out of here. And I did, and he let me, and I took off, and I came to his office. And I remember Rabbi Lipsker was in his office at his desk, and when I walked in, he was just studying this little piece of paper. And he, it was interesting. There was this shaft of light coming through the blinds. I remember it was like a whole scene, with him with the black hat and, in this little office, and he's looking at this little piece of paper. It actually was a big piece of paper, but there was only a small little paper that had, on the fax, had come through. And the rabbi says, sit down, Yosef. And he said, you know, I'm very puzzled by this answer. Because I had asked him, you know, what does it say? What does it say? And he goes, I can't figure it out. He goes, I've been thinking about it for a long time. So he says, I'll tell you what it says. It says, tell me all your names. This was the answer. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, I write a letter to this great Jewish leader. You know, I'm an anchor man. I could probably help Chabad in some way. I'm going to get some kind of intellectual answer or some interesting answer. This answer was interesting, but it was totally out of the box. Tell me all your names. And he looks at me and I look at him. I go, tell me all your names. What does tell me all your names mean? And he goes, the only thing I can think of, the rabbi says, is that it means that the Rebbe somehow doesn't recognize your soul or something. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And this actually had, I think now that I'm thinking about it, preceded my trip to 770, and now that I'm thinking about the order of things, because I didn't tell the story completely in a chronological way. But in any case, the rabbi said, are you sure you know your Jewish name? And I'm like, am I sure I know my Jewish name? Yeah, I'm positive I know my Jewish name. And I had signed my Jewish name on the letter. I signed my English name, signed my Hebrew name. And, you know, he said, well, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm positive. My name is Yosef. You know, I know my father's name is Tzvi Hirschleib Halevi, and that's my name. He goes, look, he goes, I'm sure you're right. He goes, but maybe you should ask your mother anyway. I said, okay, I'll ask my mother. You know, I was like, this is silly in a way. So I go to my mother. I go right from his office to my mom. Knock on the door. My mom opens the door. Mom, I got an answer from the Rebbe. Oh, what did he say? My mom, of course, loved Chabad. She was had a very different sense of it than my father did at first. And she loved the rabbi. My dad liked the rabbi too a lot, but he was a little more suspicious. But in any case, my mom was like, okay, well, what does it say? I said, Mom, it's really an odd answer. His answer is, tell me all your names. So my mother just was perplexed, and I said, I know, it doesn't make any sense, but I know my Jewish name. My name is Yosef, and my mother looks at me and she goes, yeah, Yosef Mordechai. I said, what? She goes, your name is Yosef Mordechai. I said, Mordechai? I said, you never told me that. So right then I was sort of shocked. And another interesting thing was I always liked the name Mordechai. I always really liked it. I always thought he was one of these great figures from learning about Jewish history, and I always really liked the name. But of course, there was a lot of other implications, and it took many years, I think, for me to kind of figure out what it all meant for me. But in any case, now I realize my name was Yosef Mordechai ben Tzvi Hirschleib Halevi. And then the rabbi said, now we can write another letter to the Rebbe, and you'll sign it with your full name. And this time maybe you'll get an answer. And I did get an answer, and the answer that came back that time was, ask your best friend what that person thinks. And I asked my mother, who I had felt was my best friend, and my mom, you know, and I talked about that, and eventually I did, you know, start working with the Aleph Institute. But years later, what I got from that was, I think any other Jewish leader I would have written a letter to would have been thinking, what is the marketing potential for our organization? How could he help us with video news releases or press coverage? Or in what manner can this person help our organization grow? And the Rebbe wasn't thinking about any of that. The Rebbe was thinking, well, here's a Jewish boy that doesn't know his name. So I I felt like the Rebbe was in a completely different category and was a totally different kind of leader. You know, one that somehow, as far away as I was from him, and how we were only communicating by fax machine, was still able to sort of, you know, reach through the ether and like touch you on a very, very profound level.
With materials from the Living Archive, established by the Rohr Family Foundation. Video collection preserved by Benjamin Federman in tribute to his parents.